Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Hard Light Network. Today, we're going to be covering the final segment of the Andrew Callahan allegations. After 4 days of silence, Andrew Callahan has finally come out with his side of the story. He has responded to all the allegations personally and publicly. He created a new YouTube channel named after himself, and the only video that's currently posted to it is his response to these allegations. Before we get into this, I wanted to say this video came out and I wanted to really dissect it before I made a reaction. I didn't want to react in the heat of the moment. I didn't want to try to rush to be the first one to get a reaction video out. My goal is to go through the most serious allegations, the strongest points on both sides of the argument, and to try and come closer to a conclusion that is closest to the truth. None of us were there. None of us can know with any certainty without investigating this directly. Personally, I think the only way that this goes forward is if some sort of legal action is brought against one party or the other, and honestly, I don't see that being the direction that it goes. I think there are some things with Andrew's response that I can agree with and I understand and I think are true, but there's also some things that cause me to question a little bit, and we're going to cover that right now. So this is the Andrew Callahan response. At the beginning of his video, he states that he wants to remain accountable and honest and transparent with his audience. He reaches out and gives his gratitude to the victims and acknowledges a pattern of pressuring and pestering women, being a little too persistent and being a little too forward. He explains his misunderstanding of consent, but he calls his behavior sex pest behavior. However, he does say that there is missing context with a lot of the allegations that are out there, and that he wants to be an example for other young men of how not to behave in these situations. Andrew says that he never crossed the line of consent. Andrew claims that he always took no for an answer, and when a woman did not provide her consent, he did not take anything any further. He also goes on to talk about his future, saying he's going to step out of public life in order to pursue a 12-step program with Alcoholics Anonymous. He says that he wants the victims to reach out if they feel so inclined so that he can apologize to them directly, and he wraps it up by apologizing to his friends, family, and coworkers for his behavior and for the shame that it has brought on them and the hardship that it has caused them. He closes his response asking all of us to remember the mission of radical empathy that Channel 5 sought to put out into the world. And I think that most people would understand that. However, the majority of the allegations alleged outright sexual misconduct. Many of these allegations accused him of over-providing alcoholic drinks. Many of these allegations accuse him of not taking no for an answer. As in my last few videos, I'm not going to put much stock into the anonymous allegations, purely because they are anonymous allegations. As it stands, anonymous allegations are just too untrustworthy to make any sort of judgment calls on. That being said, we have two sets of allegations that are very public, that are not anonymous, and that allege some very serious things, and they are exactly counter to what Andrew has said in his response, namely the moldy freckle allegations. Andrew says in his response video that he always took no for an answer, that he never crossed the line when it came to consent. However, Moldy Freckle insists that she was repeatedly advanced on by Andrew, that she told him on multiple occasions that he made her uncomfortable and that she did not consent to sex. She says Andrew repeatedly requested sex prior to the assault. She also alleges that Andrew escalated the situation from an uncomfortable one to a physical one. The clear contradiction is that Moldy Freckle insists that Andrew didn't take no for an answer. And whether he was drunk or not, he escalated the situation after she rejected him. There are some other things about Andrew's response that I find suspect. I think there is a little bit of a conflict at publicly announcing his intent to join Alcoholics Anonymous, tied with the public announcement that he is going to be withdrawing from public life. Unless the situation goes to a legal place, unless one of these girls is willing to press charges against him, I think that Andrew intends to wait this out and, as he says, work on himself for a period of years before making a return to public life. No matter what has been said about Andrew in the past few days, here and now, Andrew has categorically denounced any accusations that he did not respect consensual boundaries. That is in clear contradiction to what Moldy Freckle alleges in her allegations, as well as what many of the anonymous accusations allege. Andrew's tone in his response is reflective of his radical empathy ideology, but I also find it very interesting that rather than leading with denial, he leads with an apology. Though he says that many of the accusations are missing context, he does not provide that context, and he does not name any specific allegations that are wrong. In fact, he says that the purpose of his response is not to invalidate anyone's lived experience, and that if they feel uncomfortable, then it is what it is. I think the most concerning thing about Andrew's response is the lack of specificity. Now, I agree with and accept, and I'm sure many of the alleged victims may even appreciate some of his candor and his acknowledgement of some of the situation. And though I disagree with Bo Black's initial reaction, I think he may have jumped the shark, and in the future I would like for people like Bo Black's and Xander Hall to wait a few days before going off the deep end. I think that what Bo Black said at the end of my first video, he anticipated Andrew's response of painting himself in a better light, kind of omitting things, not exactly lying, but not completely telling the truth either. And I think as much as I enjoyed Channel 5's content, I think that Andrew's response has actually done more harm than good when it comes to his case. And I know many people will probably accept his response for what it is, and I hope that his apology is sincere. However, I think that, like I said in my previous video, the likelihood of this case reaching a court is very low. And I think that even if this case went to court and Andrew was given the maximum sentence, just like he said in his response video, he's 25 years old. Time is on his side. He is in the prime of his life, and even now, he says he has a passion for journalism. So regardless of what the future holds for Andrew in his immediate future, I think it's safe to say that Andrew does intend to pursue a journalistic career in the future. And if it isn't as the face of a journalistic agency, I would probably hazard to guess that Andrew will seek out employment in journalism behind the scenes. In his response, Andrew has committed to working on himself by going and receiving therapy regarding his actions. In the context of his staunch denial of overlooking any consensual boundaries, and in light of his clear denial of any actual legal wrongdoing, I personally wonder what it is exactly that he is going to therapy for. I agree that we need to have an updated conversation about consent and the nature of relationships between men and women in this modern age. I also agree that in this day and age, men cannot take a woman's silence as approval. I agree 1,000%. When adults interact with each other in a romantic way, there are verbal and nonverbal cues that give consent. And as a society, we are entering into a time where attitudes about sex and consent are shifting. This is nothing new. We've gone through this before. The unfettering of those concepts from traditional mores has brought us to this point where now people are rediscovering the boundaries of what is appropriate in a sexual relationship. This situation, more than anything, is going to contribute to a greater conversation about the shifting attitudes towards sex and sexual relationships in our culture. And I do believe that that is a good thing. I think that we need to have that conversation. And just like Andrew said, we need to be honest, and we need to be transparent, and we need to be accountable. However, in regards to this specific situation, unless it goes to a place where one party is willing to charge the other with something, it has reached something of a legal stalemate. Andrew will disappear from the public eye for a little while, and that he will reappear maybe subtly in the same field because he says he's young and he still has a burning passion for journalism. I am not at all pleased about the outcome of this situation. I'm not at all pleased about people's reaction and response to this situation. And to be quite honest with you guys, after this video, I don't think I'll be making another one about this. This is the last update important to the public, and more importantly than that, this is the last update that I think that we're going to have. After this, I think that apart from a few people mentioning it in passing, that this story is over, for better or for worse. Where we move from here is up to you guys. Everyone on the internet, everyone that's out there engaging in conversations on a daily basis, it's up to you where this goes. We don't have to forget, and the victims certainly don't have to feel happy with the way that this turned out either. I think that more than anything, we would benefit from an open and honest discussion, but that requires people who are willing to come to the table and talk to one another, understand one another, trust that we all want to cohabitate in this world together. We don't all have to agree, and we don't all have to come to the same conclusion, but we do all have to live here together. And I think that learning how to do that, learning how to cohabitate, learning how to exist with one another peacefully, begins with confronting some of these harder realities. The way that men and women interact with each other has been toxic for a very long time. The power dynamics, the social dynamics, the pressures and stresses, they get to all of us. And at the end of the day, no one benefits when we live in a world where we can't be open about these issues. So guys, to wrap this video up and to finally get on to some hopefully brighter topics in the future, I want to say that I'm very disappointed with the way that this has turned out. Barring some sort of extreme developments in this story, I don't think I will be making another video about it. This series of videos has opened my eyes as an individual to a multitude of different perspectives that I never would have considered before. Just as a man, as someone who lives in the region of the world that I live in, the biggest thing that has changed for me personally following this story is that it's easy to take for granted how people should and shouldn't act and how they should and shouldn't react given a certain situation. What do you guys think? Where do you stand on this issue? Tell me in the comment section how you guys feel about the way these things have turned out, because again, we need to advance this conversation in any and every sphere. The last 2 weeks have been absolutely insane for this channel. You guys have been incredible. We are definitely hitting some growing pains at the beginning of this year. We're halfway through the first month of the new year, and we've already been through a lot as a community. Despite everything that has happened so far, there's something in the air. It feels different, and I hope you guys can feel it too. So let me know in the comment section how you feel about this situation, guys. This year has been fantastic so far, even despite everything that's been going on. You guys have really come out in support of us and this channel over here. I'm just super grateful for it, guys. We've hit a new milestone with the subscribers. It's just super awesome. This has been fun. This has been educational for me. I've learned quite a lot, and I just really I enjoy getting out here and talking to you guys about these issues and having a dialogue back and forth. What happens outside of these videos is really what it's about. When you guys give me your feedback, here's to you guys. I appreciate all the support. Here's to getting better with each one of these things. I want them to be just as enriching to you guys to hear as they are for me to make. That being said, I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Safe travels.
I'd like to start by thanking every single person who's came out in the past week to speak about different ways in which my behavior has made them feel uncomfortable or pressured during a sexual situation, and to people who said that I've made unwanted advances and had a hard time with rejection. I'm sure this was not easy to do. It's never easy to speak out, and it was hard for me to hear as well, because to be honest with you, up until this point, I didn't even really realize that I had this pattern that had affected multiple people. I'd also like to apologize for my silence. I think that when this stuff first came out, I was in a state of denial and shock. I was, just riding the high from my movie that just came out, and then within 48 hours, I was denounced by my closest collaborators, and my name was printed in 40 different news outlets next to the words sexual misconduct, and I just kind of spiraled into a mental health crisis. I'm okay now, but I don't really think this is about me. This is about the people that I've affected, so I just want to express my complete sympathy, respect, and support for anyone who I've done wrong by, and I really want to do better and be fully accountable for everything that I've done. So that being said, I want to make a few things clear. I've always taken no for an answer. As far as consent, I've never overstepped that line.
He invited me to go out to dinner so he could apologize. I go to the dinner. He's not really talking to me. And then I'm like, so did you have something you wanted to say? And he's like, oh yeah. Do you want to have sex in your car after this? And I was like, no, I don't. Is there anything else you want to say? And he was like, oh, Yeah, sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. Are you joking? You really don't want to have sex in your car after this? And he asked that like probably 5 more times. Like, you're joking, right? Like, you want to have sex in your car after this, right? And I was like, no.
So that being said, I want to make a few things clear. I've always taken no for an answer. As far as consent, I've never overstepped that line.
And I told him to get the fuck out of my car. And he was like, can I at least get a kiss goodbye? And I said, fuck no, get the fuck out. He left. Never spoke to him or saw him again.